Hello, everybody. Welcome to Therapy Thursday. It's Dr. Delvina, psychiatrist in South Florida and Miami and Fort Lauderdale. Thank you so much for joining Shajundi Hunter. I apologize if I chopped your name. Thank you for joining. You said it's your first time listening in. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the show so much that you come back or that you watch some of my old episodes. So, guys, let's get started. We're discussing food and your mood tonight. I want to talk about how what you eat and what you don't eat, how it can affect your mood, how it can lead to episodic irritability, sadness and anxiety, can interrupt sleep, all of those things. So I'll teach you how to enhance your mood. Let's get started, y'all. Party and have some fun. Get on the dance floor. Get on the dance floor. Get on the dance floor. I know you want a good vibe. Get on the dance floor. Get on the dance floor. Party and have some. Yes. So, guys, welcome again to Therapy Thursday. I'm Dr. Delvina, psychiatrist in South Florida. Welcome to my couch. Are you ready to take the couch? We are exploring the brain. I talk about everything under the umbrella of mental health and wellness. There's nothing excluded. I've talked about dementia, sex, relationships, depression, bipolar, anxiety, schizophrenia, how to Baker Act someone or how to get someone into a hospital or to get a psychiatric evaluation against their need. Everything is spoken about on my YouTube channel as well as on my Facebook page and on Instagram. Please, if you're not following me on all of my different social media outlets, please consider following and subscribing. Why? Well, because some things are appropriate for some content and other things or other handles may not be. So on Instagram, I post a whole lot of stuff. On Facebook, I keep it a little cleaner. So, I'm just being very upfront and honest with you. Tonight, I'm talking about food and how it can affect your mood in good ways and also in adverse ways, because I want everyone to be knowledgeable and how to manage their moods and how they manage how they feel and their emotions, to manage those things naturally. We can't rely on medications for everything. And oftentimes there are things that we can do to prevent episodes, mental health breaks, so on and so forth. There are things we can do naturally, and how we eat, how much water we drink on a daily basis, and other preventative measures such as exercising on a regular basis, and also being very strategic about who you engage with and socialize and interact with. So let's get started. I'm going to start first with the video. This is Throwback Thursday, right? So let's start first with the video. Throwback Thursday, NBC6 with Jawan Strader on Voices.
Mental health is often ignored in the Black community, but it no doubt greatly affects many African Americans out there. And there are many ways to support mental wellness, including the foods that you see that you eat. I'm joined by psychiatrist Dr. Delvina Thomas to pinpoint which foods are best to boost our brains. Thank you so much for coming on the show once again.
Hi, Jawan.
I see all the food here.
Yes, yes.
Let's talk, before we get to the foods here, let's talk about that. So that's saying you are what you eat. That's relatively true.
That is absolutely true. Everything that you consume, it's a part of your body, including the brain. So the things that we drink, that we eat, it can affect your brain in good and bad ways.
And it's interesting because we've been learning more and more as far as education when it comes to our body and health and the foods that we eat, such as processed foods and how that could be bad, but the natural foods and the organic foods, how good that can be for our bodies as well as our brains.
Yeah. And the thing is this, we have stress on a daily basis, most of us. And what people don't realize is that stress can lead to inflammation. Inflammation occurs in the body, including in the brain. And when you have inflammation on a chronic basis, meaning every day or most days consistently over a long term, it can lead to diseases like multiple sclerosis, anxiety, hypertension. So we can do things naturally. What we eat, what we consume in our diet can actually decrease the incidence or the risk of developing this inflammation inflammation and developing those diseases.
And Dr. Delvina can also help us as far as overcoming colds and everything based upon what we eat as well.
Yes, yes, the vitamin C and some of the antioxidants that we can consume. So what people know is that food can help physically with the body, but we never think about the brain. And that's why we have to have the discussion so that people are more aware of what they can do by eating and help their brain in different ways with their memory, with slowing normal aging, reducing the risk of developing things like Alzheimer's, dementia, helping with concentration, with focus. Also children, preventing ADD and ADHD by giving them certain foods.
I love this. Now let's talk about some of the foods we have right in front of us here.
Yay.
You bought a little bit of everything, so let's talk about that. Avocados, and I believe that's what I'm looking at here, right?
Yes,
avocados.
yes.
Let's talk about the power of avocados.
So avocados can do so many different things. So
I love them.
Yes, I love them too. Guacamole, all that stuff.
Yeah.
They contain a lot of antioxidants, so they can help with things like you said with colds. They have good fat, so they help with protecting the brain. They can help largely with memory and concentration. So avocados, for the sake of the brain, good for memory, great for concentration.
So I have some grapes here as well.
Yes.
Okay, so you mean grapes help me with something?
Yeah. So if you have to choose grapes, you want red grapes, not green grapes. If you have to choose between red and green, you want to go with the red. And so, you know, it's sort of along the same lines of red wine, right? So we hear about red wine being good for you in moderation in small amounts. Red grapes, the same thing. So what grapes do for us, red grapes that is, it helps to thin the blood. So when the blood is thinner, it can flow, and you get that consistent blood flow to the brain, and it reduces the risk of a stroke. So that's how red grapes are helpful.
I love it. And you talked about the wine, because of course we're always hearing about wine. One year it's great for us, and then one year it's bad for us. But I think it's too much of anything. You have to do it in moderation.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. That applies to everything. You have to keep
everything.
Yes, moderation. Except for salmon.
Except for salmon. We're going to talk about the salmon as well. The blueberries I see over here.
Oh my gosh. So blueberries, they are wonderful. And the reason why is they're like candy.
Yeah.
It's fruit, but they taste sweet, they taste great. And blueberries are one of the highest packed foods with antioxidants. And so antioxidants, right, what does that really mean? So our bodies undergo normal metabolism and processes every day on a just day-in basis, and we create these bad substances in the body that are called radicals. Radicals float around and they do bad things, and they cause damage to our cells. So that's why we have to consume antioxidants. Blueberries are high in antioxidants, as are some other foods, but that's one of the foods that's highest in antioxidants. So they also help with memory and concentration as well.
And Dr. Delvina, we don't have it up here, but I'm going to get to these others. But I saw dark chocolate here in my notes here.
Yes.
Dark chocolate. So I can cheat with some dark chocolate, but it can actually help me.
Yes, yes. So everything is not healthy as far as, you know, people think, oh, if it's good for me, that means it won't taste good. If you want to have some chocolate, avoid white chocolate, avoid the milk chocolate, and have dark chocolate, but just ensure that it's at least 70% cocoa.
Okay.
You need at least 70%. It contains antioxidants. It helps also with the aging process, helps with memory and focus, concentration, those things as well.
I love to lower the blood pressure.
Yes.
I love that.
That's another benefit
I'm going to tell my
of
mama
dark
she can have some dark chocolate then to help with that blood pressure. Okay, real fast. I see a few more things before we get to the leafy things over here, but I see the sweet potatoes, I believe, over here.
Yeah, so full of antioxidants, helps the brain also in protecting against sort of that normal aging process, reducing risk of inflammation, helping with sort of concentration also in the focus. Same thing with broccoli. Broccoli is great for focus, concentration, and memory.
And real fast, salmon.
Oh gosh, salmon is the best food you can eat for your brain, including your children. I got to repeat that. Give your children salmon. Stop with the catfish. Stop with the tilapia. Instead, salmon. Salmon is packed full of omega-3 fatty acids. Omega-3 fatty acids reduce the aging process, the risk of Alzheimer's, dementia. Salmon also helps with memory, concentration, distractibility. In fact, studies show that if you feed your children salmon,
Right.
that you can reduce the risk of developing ADD or ADHD, or even treat any symptoms of ADD, ADHD they may have, like restlessness, distractibility, and attentiveness.
I gotta make sure my daughter has a little bit more of that. She needs some more salmon in her life at the age of 3.5. And I know before we go, you made us something special here.
That's right. This is a green smoothie. If you have to have a smoothie of any type, you want it to be a green smoothie, more than likely it will contain spinach. Spinach is great for the brain. It's the best thing for the brain. If you don't like spinach, use some kale. Okay, and then you can throw in a little kiwi, which is good for the brain too and helps with the taste, a little bit of apple, pear. So you want to consume a green smoothie if you can, at least twice a day. And it helps with digestion also, and it's great for workouts.
Amen. Don't take that yet. Before we go, I just want to say a big thank you to Dr. Delvina for sharing her expertise. And for more information, just go to drdelvina.help or brainlove.help, or call her at 305-981-1700. And on that note, we're going to say cheers.
Tap, tap to Brain Love.
Alrighty, guys. So thank you so much for watching that short mini video. I just wanted to set the stage and also just share some information, because everything's not in this next presentation that you're about to see. So I wanted to ensure that you receive as much information as possible, and we can come back and do this again. So let's get it started. We are talking food and your mood tonight. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your time. And for those of you, if this is your first time coming in, you will love what you hear on my couch. So we're discussing your mood and your food, how what you eat changes how you feel. I'm a firm believer in eating for not just your body, but your brain as well. And if you can control how you feel by eating better, why wouldn't you, right? People are fed by the food industry, which doesn't consider health. They just want to sell us this cheap snacks and food and fast food that's not good for us. And then people are also treated by the health industry, which doesn't consider food. When was the last time that you went to your primary care doctor and that person asked you about your intake or inquired about what your meals, what you're eating on a day-to-day basis? Did they sit down and do a food journal with you? So this is the standard American diet. 70%, basically, if we round it up, 70% of what we eat in the United States is processed foods. It's fast food, it's the potato chips, it's the bagged and boxed desserts. Americans spend about 10% of their disposable income on fast food. The average American consumes over 130 pounds of sugar per year. That's a lot of sugar. And wait until I tell you what sugar does to the body and the brain. You'll reduce your sugar intake quickly. More than 1/3 of U.S. adults are obese. And unfortunately, in U.S. middle schools and high schools in the early 2000s, 60% of middle schools and high schools sold soft drinks and vending machines. I'm thinking back to the time when I was in school, all we had was water and cartons of milk. And eventually we had a couple of little small containers of juice during the breakfast hour. And then in high school, which I was in high school 1990 to 1994, we felt like we got lucky. We got Hawaiian punch. So again, the standard American diet and nutrition in America, we eat so badly. We don't eat healthy. We don't eat for our brains. We are not really concerned about the long-term effects of how what we eat will affect us adversely. 63% of our diet of the calories come from refined and processed foods. Again, the soft drinks, the packaged snacks like potato chips, the packaged desserts. Listen, I don't eat Entenmann's. I don't like eating tasty cakes and all that crap. I used to back in the day when I was a little younger, a Hostess honey bun, but I stopped eating that mess. Number one, it doesn't taste good. I like a good homemade pecan pie every so often, or a sakatumi cake, or a homemade apple pie or something, not the stuff that's boxed up. And when you look at the expiration date, it says it expires 3 years from now. How can something that expires a year later or 3 years later be healthy for you? It's not. Only 25% of our calories come from animal-based foods, so meats and all of that stuff, and only 12% comes from plant-based food. But when you break it down, half of that 12% of the plant-based food, it comes from French fries. So of course we know French fries are not healthy for you. Potatoes are carbohydrates. Carbohydrates break down into sugar, right? And so you can gain weight from the sugar. Also, most of the time people eat French fries that are fried. So eating the fried foods it's also unhealthy for you. So only 6% of our calories are coming from health promoting fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, and seeds. Check this out. I want you to really pay attention to this slide because I'm showing you a comparison of how symptoms of poor nutrition can imitate mental health disorders. So someone may feel all these things you see on the right under poor nutrition and really believe that maybe they're in a depressive episode or that they're suffering from some mental health disorder. And I am not trying to downplay mental health and wellness at all. I'm not trying to downplay mental illnesses. Go and see someone if you feel unusual and it's sustained, it's happening over and over, it's recurring. Go and see someone, see your primary care so they can work up and rule out physical problems that could be causing it. See a psychiatrist or a mental health professional so we too can work you up and ask the questions, because in my office, when you see one of our providers, we're going to ask you about your food intake, about your water intake, about exercise, because we want to know if what you're doing is causing the symptoms that you come into the office for. Poor nutrition feels like fatigue. You're tired all the time. We see that also in mental health disorders like depressive disorders. Poor nutrition can cause anxiety. You know, consuming too much caffeinated beverages like coffee and teas and sodas and energy drinks. Mental health disorders include anxiety. Poor nutrition can feel like sadness or feeling blue or melancholy. Depression, people liken that to depression. We see that in mental health disorders too. Another big one, irritability. When you don't eat well because you're eating a bunch of fast food and fried foods and unhealthy things and a lot of carbohydrates, and I'll talk a little later about how sugar can cause those spikes and cause those crashes. When those things are happening, sometimes people feel irritable. You see irritability in mental health disorders as well. Poor mood. I just mentioned poor mood when I talked about depression. Stress intolerance. When you don't feed the machine, you can't tolerate stress well. When you're not giving yourself the healthy foods, the green veggies, the fruits, the things that are long lasting. See, because when they break down, you use those things to build different things like protein. What you eat are the building blocks to what you need to sustain, to live, and to feel happy. Stress intolerance is a big deal in irritability when people eat poorly. Inability to sleep can be a result of eating poorly. And you see that also in certain mood disorders. Neurotransmitter depletion. What is a neurotransmitter? I'm going to talk about that a little later in the presentation. And this presentation will not take long. I'm glad you guys are joining me on the couch. It will not take long at all. Neurotransmitters, we'll talk about that a little later, but those are your things like the endorphins, the chemicals that help to sustain and maintain your mood and help you bounce back when you have a moment of sadness. So take a look at this slide. The Western diet versus the traditional diet. What's the difference? So which one do we fall under? Is America do we have a Mediterranean diet, or are we considered a Western diet? We are in the West. We have a Western diet. And as such, you see how poorly we eat. Most of us eat poorly. So you want your building blocks, your base, to be green. You want the biggest part of this triangle to be green. The green is the green, the veggies, the fruit, the cereals, whole grain, preferably olive oils. So we see a lot of that in the Mediterranean diet, but in the Western diet, we get very little whole grains, very little vegetables, beans and legumes, and fruits. Instead, we're heavy in the red. And what does red mean in most places? Red means stop, right? We should stop this. You should limit how much of these items you have. These are things like sweets and desserts and potatoes, processed meats, you know, like the salamis and the hot dogs and the meat that you buy in the store that really doesn't expire for a year. Red meat. We eat a lot of that stuff in America, but we need less of it. Our triangle, or the portion of the triangle, should look like the little red top of this triangle under Mediterranean diet. And so in between, you have to get some legumes and, you know, refined grains and a little bit of potato, but Really, you need more nuts, sweets, and olives, which is what you see depicted over here under the Mediterranean diet. So take a look at this, guys. Think about it. Think how you can modify your grocery list, how you can modify what's in your kitchen so it's a reflection more of what you see on the left side, which is the Mediterranean diet. If you're looking at the screen, it's on the left. You need more fruits, vegetables, cereals, olive oil. I'm going to ask some of you to be honest and talk about how many fruits, how many pieces of fruit you had today. So how does food affect our brain? This is important. This is muy importante. The food you eat can affect the chemical composition of your brain because the nutrients in foods are precursors for the neurotransmitters. I just mentioned neurotransmitters in 2 slides back. Neurotransmitter depletion. When you're not eating so that the food that you eat can be broken down into these building blocks to make the neurotransmitters, then you're going to be short. You won't have enough of the building blocks to make the neurotransmitters that you need. Neurotransmitters are chemical messengers that tell our body what to do and how to feel, and include, as I said, the endorphins, the things like the dopamine and the serotonin. So let's talk about dopamine. Has everyone heard of dopamine? Place in the chat dopamine and a yes or dopamine and a no if you have not learned about dopamine. So dopamine affects many parts of our behavior and our physical functioning. And here's a list of everything that dopamine is involved in. And actually, I misspoke. This is not everything. This is the major things that dopamine is involved in the body. So the brain changes an amino acid by the name of tyrosine to a substance called levodopa, which is also known as L-dopa, and then that becomes dopamine. So what do you think happens if you're not feeding your body those amino acids? Amino acids come from proteins. That's how we get amino acids. Protein you can find in certain beans, you can find in meats, you can find in protein shakes, So you need to make dopamine so that you can learn better, so you feel more motivated, so you feel happy, so you can manage your heart rate. It helps with kidneys. It helps women who are breastfeeding. It helps us to lactate when we're breastfeeding. It also helps with sleep and mood, of course. People have heard that if your dopamine is low, you may feel sad or you may feel depressed. Also, dopamine helps in controlling nausea and vomiting and helps with pain processing. There's also information here about tyrosine. How do we get more tyrosine, the amino acid that I just mentioned? So these are foods that are packed with tyrosine. So you can eat some spirulina. I love spinach. Remember Popeye back in the day? Popeye would eat his spinach and then he would become so strong and beat up Pluto, I think was his name. So spinach is beneficial to us for so many different reasons, including gut health. Spinach helps in moving our bowels and gut health is important. I'll talk about that one day as well. You can get tyrosine from egg whites, from salmon. You heard me on the video mention salmon and how it's important for omega-3 fatty acids, but salmon also contains significant amounts of tyrosine. Cottage cheese, I don't like cottage cheese, so I'm going to pass on that. I don't know about you guys, but fava beans also. I love me some avocados, like I was telling Joanne in the video. I had an avocado today. I had a banana today. I don't eat peanuts often, but peanuts have tyrosine. So does turkey, chicken, and edamame. I love some edamame. So tyrosine is used to create dopamine. So perhaps that's why I'm always so jolly and talking about sex and relationships. I don't know. So serotonin is another important chemical and neurotransmitter in the human body. Take a look at this slide. Serotonin is believed to help regulate mood and social behaviors. It helps us with appetite and digestion. It helps with sleeping better, with memory, as well as sexual desire and sexual functioning. Some people talk about their libido has dropped. Listen, as we get older, all of us, men and women, we change and we notice different things about our bodies, and we feel different ways, and we may not feel the same as we felt at 30 or at 20 or at 40 when we're in our 50s. But there are things you can do to help yourself feel and to lead a happy, content life and still feel the same as you did 10, 20 years ago. And that's why we're talking about this. So the brain changes tryptophan. We talked about tyrosine, right? Tyrosine being converted to serotonin. Now we're talking about tryptophan. Tryptophan gets converted into serotonin. So remember, serotonin is one of the 3 neurotransmitters that I mentioned here. We have dopamine, serotonin. It says endorphins, but there's another one called norepinephrine, but I'm not going to get into that one tonight. So the brain changes tryptophan into serotonin. So serotonin affects many parts of your behavior, as I said. It helps to regulate all of these things. So maybe if you're feeling like you have low libido, it could potentially be because of you are not eating healthy. There are a lot of different factors for that. Most of the time, sexual dysfunction has a basis in mental health and wellness. There's something mental that's causing you to have that sexual dysfunction. All righty. So serotonin is very important. Drugs that alter serotonin levels, we give antidepressants to try to help bring up those serotonin levels to help with things like the depression and the anxiety. Other ways to increase your body's serotonin level includes also light, exercise, and diet, as we're discussing tonight. Now, what foods are highest in tryptophan? So I have this on here. It says, guess what? Turkey's nowhere near the top, because oftentimes when I teach people about insomnia and sleeping, I talk about, oh, if you can't sleep at night, maybe you're low on tryptophan, just go get a little slice of turkey meat or something, which is processed, right? So you have to limit that unless you actually have some real turkey, which most of us don't have real turkey except during the holidays. So anyhow, these are foods that are high in tryptophan content. So the highest is spirulina. There's a running theme here. Maybe spirulina should be in your household. Maybe spirulina should be on your grocery list. Cod has significant amounts of tryptophan as well, as do soybeans, Parmesan, pork, turkey, beef. Salmon is lower than beef and turkey, and then eggs and potatoes. So potatoes, we've already determined, are not healthy for us. So don't go eating a bunch of potatoes trying to get more tryptophan, because potatoes barely have tryptophan. You know, they're 0.2. So you want to stick with the cod is good, the salmon, the spirulina, the soybeans. Hoo-wee. Sugar, sugar, sugar. Now, I'm going to do a myth versus facts after I do the slideshow, which I'm almost finished. But sugar is the devil, man. Research has shown that sugar can be more addictive than cocaine. Do you guys believe that? It can be more addictive than cocaine. Think about the time you ate too much ice cream, or you overindulged in a second helping of pasta. All of these carbohydrates get converted to sugar in your body, including the pasta. I know some people feel like if it's not a dessert, it doesn't have sugar. That is false. So this is the progression of U.S. sugar consumption, right? Over the years, through the decades, through the centuries, we've been eating more and more sugar. In 1820, they were eating less than 20 pounds of sugar in a year. I told you on that other slide, we're up to 130 pounds of sugar every year. We have to eat less sugar, because the thing is, you may feel like you want it and you feel good for a little bit, but after a few hours, you might start to feel tired, cranky. You might get mentally foggy, or even feel anxious or unhappy. So as good as it may feel in the beginning, it's a problem in the end. The problem is that the sugar coaster keeps going up and it crashes down. The more you do this, the harder you fall. So you got to watch your sugar intake. How does sugar affect our mood? Sugar temporarily increases heart rate and blood pressure, but once it's used up, once we break it down, our blood sugar levels drop dramatically, which makes us feel irritable, fatigued, have headaches, have anxiety. And so I just want to give an example about children in this. People who give their kids a lot of candy and cakes and cookies, when you're wondering why your child is so irritable and cranky and crying and you can't get them to stop crying, this probably could have a lot to do with it. So take a look at your child's diet and make some modifications. Here are some long-term effects of excessive sugar: high blood pressure, obesity, high cholesterol, heart disease, Inflammation. I told you I would tell you what all the sugar does to your body. Sugar hanging out in the body. Sugar may taste good on your palate, on your tongue, but hanging out in the body, it causes inflammation. It can cause liver disease. It can increase episodes of sadness and anxiety, depression and anxiety. What should we eat for better mental health? Okay, so I'm going to give you time to take a look at this graph. This is a healthy eating plate that you see on the right. And we can talk a little later too about what did you eat today? What did you consume? You want to replace the sugar and the simple carbohydrates and the fried food and the cookies and the soft drinks. You want to replace them with fruits and complex carbohydrates like beans and grains. Complex carbohydrates are healthier for you. You want healthy protein. You want vegetables and water. Water is important. You have to drink at least 64 ounces. However, take your weight, divide it by 2, and that's how much water you should be drinking on a daily basis. So if you weigh 300 pounds, you should be drinking over a gallon of water every day. We should be using healthy oils like olive and canola oil. That's the only oil you'll find in my home is olive oil and grapeseed oil also. You can use that on salads, at the table to cook with. More veggies, the better. Potatoes and French fries don't count. I also don't count corn either. I really count the green veggies, the Brussels sprouts, the asparagus, the arugula, the romaine lettuce, the collard greens. Collard greens, we love them and they're healthy for us, man. Don't just eat collard greens on Sunday. Don't just eat collard greens on Christmas and Thanksgiving. And you want to have plenty of fruits of all colors. Like today I had a pear, I had kiwi, I had banana, told you I had an avocado, I had some tomato soup. So, you know, we have to eliminate a lot of the meat, a lot of the animal products, and eat more whole grains and have more veggies. Whole grains would be like brown rice. So in my house, we have brown rice. I used to love jasmine rice. And there was a time where I just bought jasmine rice, but no longer. Whole wheat bread is healthier than white bread, but you have to watch eating the whole wheat bread as well. And whole grain pastas. I'm so glad my son likes whole grain pasta now and brown rice. When he was younger, he didn't want to eat it, but he understands now, even at the young age of 24, he understands the importance of eating healthy. You want to choose things like fish and poultry over red meat and over the pork and the bacon. You want to avoid bacon and cold cuts and processed meats. All right, guys, we're towards the end. Here is the takeaway. The takeaway is this: poor nutrition can lead to mental health disorders and cognitive impairment. Processed foods can increase depression. Sugar leads to poor mental health and wellness, poor physical health and wellness, cognitive interference. Better food equals a better mood. So I hope I have convinced you all that you got to eat better. You have to eat healthier. So, oh my gosh, there's so many comments and questions in here. My goodness. Okay. All righty. Let's see. Thank you so much for joining me tonight, guys. I really appreciate it because I want you to understand how you eat can really help you and can really prevent certain disorders and prevent you from feeling down in the dumps and having these episodes of irritability and sadness. So I'm rolling back up. So let's play a little game of myth versus fact. Let's see who has paid attention. So myth versus fact. So you guys can drop the comments, okay? Drop in the comments if it's a myth or if it's a fact. Now, the first statement. Research has shown that sugar is more addictive than cocaine. Is that a myth or is that a fact? Myth or facts? Cocaine or sugar is more addictive than cocaine. What do you guys think? And yes, please inbox me. Yes, inbox me if you have questions. Thank you for watching, everyone. I appreciate it. All right, so I'm looking to see. So if you said that that is a fact, like Richard Ruffin, Professor Ruffin, thank you for joining. It is definitely a fact. All righty, someone else agreed that corn is not a healthy vegetable for you. Corn is starchy. That is absolutely correct. All righty. Complex carbs are good because the fiber makes them release the sugar into your blood slower. Thank you so much. I see I got some experts in here on food and health and wellness. Yeah, so cousin T-Roy, you got to get your daughter off of that sugar. So try to slowly take her off of the sugar, man. Don't buy the snacks. And Monica's in here. She got to have her homemade banana. I got to have your homemade banana pudding too. I love it. And spirulina powder in smoothies is a great way to add spirulina into your food. Oh, I love some cod. Someone says they don't like cod at all. Spirulina, you can find it, and you can get it in like Trader Joe's and Whole Foods. You may even be able to find it in like Target supermarkets. Are tacos healthy? Someone's being funny. Okay. So let's see, Angela Howell. I was lacking serotonin on meds because it caused anxiety, but I started eating more healthy, feel less depressed. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. When we eat healthy, that's why my energy, people ask me, how do you have so much energy? How are you doing so many things? I try to be very mindful of my diet. I know that I'm always I used to post a lot of food. I used to go to Southern Spice and stuff and eat and, but lately I've been very careful about my diet, very intentional. Some of you, if you know me, I had this short span of time when I was a vegan. So, but I miss eating certain things. I miss eating fish. I miss eating shrimp, which now I've actually cut from my diet. I miss crab. So I couldn't stay with the vegan kick, but there are other things we can do. We can cut out the red meat and the pork. I don't eat a lot of chicken either. If I have chicken, it's more like, it's like a chicken pasta, something like that. Every so often I'll have wings. Okay, let's see. Someone says they love spinach. Yep, I don't really see any questions. So I guess pretty much I gave you guys the information. T-Roy, you got to have fruit, my man. So let's talk, if you guys have time, let's talk about gut health. Let's talk about that. So eating healthy is not just to, yes, feed your soul, Alaran, not just for your brain, not just for your moods, not just for you physically, but it also is important for gut health. When you have vegetables and fruits, they contain fiber, right? And so when we eat those things and they're broken down in our gut and our intestines, it makes it easier for the body to rid the system of the toxins that we acquire on a day-to-day basis. There's a lot of bacteria in our gut. You should be having a bowel movement. You should have a bowel movement every day. We should actually have a bowel movement after we eat. After every meal, if we were eating properly and we were eating naturally and had plant-based diets, we would have a bowel movement after every meal. That's really how it should work. However, there are some people who have a bowel movement every 2 days or every 3 days or once a week. I can't imagine what that feels like. That has to feel awful to someone. It feels awful because everything you've eaten for those 2 or 3 days or for that week is just sitting inside of your belly and your intestine. Because you're eating the food, it goes to the stomach, we break it down and we pass it out into our intestines, and it's just sitting there. You have to move your bowels at least once every day. To help with that, consume more fiber, and you get the fiber in the vegetables and the fruits that you eat. And drink water, drink more water. Water helps also with passing this food, digesting the food, and also moving the food through your tract, your intestinal tract. So you want to get rid of the waste that you're creating from the things that you're eating. I'll tell you another secret. We have what's called a brain in our gut. It's not just a brain up here. We have a brain in our gut also. And what that means is this. There are certain receptors that are located in our brain that we use to help regulate our mood, that we use for the serotonin and those endorphins that I talked about. Some of those receptors are also contained in your gut. And so if you have a lot of toxins and a lot of food and a lot of sludge hanging out in there and just sticking around for 2 and 3 weeks and a month, because it takes about a month to digest red meat, right? Red meat doesn't just come out of your body quickly. It hangs around for a long time. Now get this. Red meat obviously comes from animals. Animals have hormones like we do. And this is why the cancer rate has gone up. The cancer rates have risen because of the high meat diet that we have in America. Cancer rates have increased. We have good studies that show when folks consume a plant-based diet mostly or only, they're healthier in a lot of different ways. But when you cut out all of that meat, and especially the red meat, meat comes from animals. Animals have souls. That's what I believe. Animals have souls. Animals have hormones. They're living creatures. So when you ingest those things, you're ingesting everything about that animal. That's what I believe in. I don't know what you believe, but that's what I believe. When you ingest, when you consume, when you eat an animal, you eat everything about that thing, about that creature. And so I want you to think about that when you're eating steak every day or when you're having a hamburger every day for lunch. Don't do it. You're increasing your risk of developing cancer, and especially men with the prostate cancers, especially men with prostate cancer. So when you eat these live creatures that we kill and we fry and we cook and bake and all that stuff, you're eating everything about that creature. That is what I believe. So limit the amount of meat that you're eating. All right. Yes, he stopped red meat 2 to 3 years ago. Yeah, it tastes good, but it's not healthy for you at all. Okay. So Eric Young, I see you laughing. I'm telling you nothing but the truth. These are absolute facts, man. And that's why meat, you just gave me the thumbs up. Thank you, dear. That's why meat can increase the risk of developing cancers. And I want everyone to be healthy. And not only that, when we eat fried foods, when we eat all of these unhealthy processed things, it can lead to heart disease. We can clog our vessels, our arteries. We can clog our vessels because of all of the grease that we're consuming. We're eating the fried stuff, all that grease that you're swallowing. If you look at the grease that's in the pan after you fry food, or the grease that comes off of the meat in the oven, when it cools, what does it look like? It looks like jelly, right? It looks like like a really thick cream or something, or a jelly. That's exactly how it looks inside of your vessels, your blood vessels. The same thing you see it do in that pan or on the stove or in the oven after it cools down, the same composition that grease has in the pan, it's the same way it'll appear in your vessels. Or when let's say you want to save leftovers and you put the meat in a container and put it in the fridge. The next morning you open it and you see there's a thick gelatinous layer on the bottom. That's what happens when we eat all of that grease. That occurs inside of our vessels. And when you have all of that sludge in your vessels, the blood cannot flow through. It's not patent. It's not open. It can't flow through. We have to get blood continuously to our heart, to all of our organs, to our heart, our brain, everywhere, our skin, everywhere. And when there's blockage, when that sludge is inside of the vessel, it's blocking some of the blood from getting through. So that's why over time, people gradually develop things like kidney disease. There are a lot of Black folks who are in end-stage renal disease, meaning their kidneys are no longer functioning because over time, the blood has not been flowing to the kidneys and perfusing the kidneys. So the kidney cells, it begins to die. And as the kidney cells begin to die, the kidney won't function the way it's supposed to. If you listen to my podcast 2 weeks ago, I had DJ Shock on. This man is in his 40s, I believe it is. But he's in end-stage renal disease. He's on dialysis. And he was very open and frank and honest. If you haven't followed my podcast yet, please follow the podcast. It's the Brain Love Podcast on all podcast platforms. There's the information. Follow the podcast, subscribe to it. You'll hear so many different commentaries about a lot of different things, but this brother is in end-stage renal disease and needs a kidney. He has less than 15%, less than 15% kidney functioning. And he's on a transplant list. He's been on the list now for a couple of years. So we can prevent these things from happening by gaining knowledge, from listening to people, from hearing people teach about these different things. And this is why I brought it to you all, because I want all of us to live our best lives. And so share this with your family members, your parents, your aunts, your uncles, your children. Teach your children young how to eat and the things to eat, and control what happens in your household with nutrition and diet. Don't buy certain things. Like my cousin mentioned, his daughter loves sugar. Cousin, don't buy the sugary snacks. Don't buy the cookies and the cakes and all of that. I like the homemade stuff. I like the homemade pecan pie, sakatumi cake, but I'm not going to eat that, not even every month. I won't even say every day. I won't eat that every month. Food is life, so eat right for your life. That's absolutely correct. And yes, way too young to be going through this. Whoops, that is absolutely correct. We are too young, and a lot of brothers have been dying from heart attacks and strokes because of not taking care of themselves. So we got to eat to live. Someone said eat to taste. And there are things we can do that we can reduce our risk from suffering from different things. Someone mentioned tomatoes. Yep, tomatoes are supposed to be good for the prostate. And there is nothing wrong with grapes. If you're going to eat grapes, Eric, you missed the very beginning. I played a video. If you're going to eat grapes, eat red grapes. Okay. All right, y'all. Yes. And I think this is definitely a good recommendation here. No energy drinks from my beautiful cousin down there in Texas, originally from Chi-Town. No energy drinks. All right. So, oh, here's a question right here. What about iced teas in the lemonade? Oh my gosh. 2 thumbs down. Iced teas and lemonade? Hell no. No, no, no. The lemonade is packed full of sugar. The lemonade is packed full of sugar. The iced teas have a lot of sugar. Water. When you want to drink, you want to hydrate, get rid of the thirst, hydrate with water. Water. Water's on my desk all day long. Water. You got to drink water. Water, 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 water. Every so often, I don't know. I mean, I very rarely drink sodas. Rarely do I have sweet tea. I guess if you're drinking unsweetened tea, it's all right. It's okay. Unsweetened tea does not have sugar, so that would be better. But then, of course, there's a little bit of caffeine in it. So if you're an anxious prone type person, it may not be a good thing for you. It's all good, Professor Ruffin. I think I know what you meant. All right. Coconut water. Unsweetened tea, I just answered that, would be better than sweetened tea. But guess what's better than that? Better than that? Water. And yes, Brian Jordan, I started doing smoothies, he said. Absolutely. I drink a smoothie every morning, Monday through Friday. On the weekends, sometimes I don't get around to having my smoothie, but Monday through Friday, I have a smoothie which contains mango, papaya, and pineapple. The best combination ever because it has that natural sweetness. There's a lot of fiber. Mango, pineapple, and papaya have plenty of vitamin C. So yes, smoothies are great. Oh, I love this question. I got to post this. Are probiotic immunity shots good to take? Cousin, I don't know what you mean by shots. If you mean like a shot, like you drink it, yes. Probiotics are good. You have to be careful though, because people will sell you wolf tickets. They'll tell you it contains a lot of probiotics, but after the process of creating it, it kills the probiotic, the live cultures that are contained in the substance. For instance, yogurt. I used to believe in yogurt. I used to eat yogurt, Greek yogurt, 1 a day, until I realized there aren't any real life agents in that yogurt. There's a limited amount of probiotics in yogurt. So what's easier and better and more reliable would be probiotics that you can buy in the vitamin store and GNC. They're contained in capsules. Immunity shots, I don't know if those, pardon me, if that's like an injection or if that's an actual shot that you're drinking or sipping. If it's an injection, okay, you said yes. So yeah, it's probably good for you. I'm not sure. You got to check the source. You have to check the source. But yes, probiotics are great for gut health. I just talked about that because most of us in our gut, there's bacteria and there's also yeast in our gut. So to keep things perfectly balanced, as women, we know what happens when inside of our vulvas, inside of our vaginas, when yeast overgrows or when bacteria overgrows. So we have to keep perfect balance. What about honey for tea? Honey is definitely the better option. Honey is the better option for tea. So if you're brewing tea and you want to sweeten it, use honey. Honey is the better option, as so is agave. Agave is a better option as well. All right. So guys, we're wrapping up now. Someone has, what if you have regular bowel movements and yet still have gut? What you suggest? What does that mean? I'm unclear, Muhammad. You have regular bowel movement and yet you still have gut. Okay. Oh, I'm loving the questions that you guys are giving me. Muhammad, you have to clarify regular bowel movements and still have, I'm not sure what you're saying. Let's see. Next question. If a man eats right and changes his diet, can that eliminate Viagra and Cialis? Yes, absolutely it can. Absolutely. Eating healthy, changing your diet, right? When you eat healthy and change your diet, more than likely, you're going to lose weight. You'll lose weight. So when men are overweight, they have too much fat. At times they're making more estrogen than they are testosterone, and that can interfere. But also when your vessels are clogged because you're eating all that fried food and all the stuff high in cholesterol, that can prevent blood from getting to the penis. So what causes the engorgement? What causes an erect penis? Blood. You need that blood flow going to the penis. So yes, eating right, losing a little weight if you're overweight, changing your diet, and also exercise. Someone just said you have to exercise too if you want to get off pills like that. Yes, exercise is very helpful because it will increase endorphins, make you feel better, make you feel more confident, will help with the weight balance. So all of those things, that's all great information. And of course, we can't miss the aphrodisiacs. There are certain things we eat that are considered aphrodisiac, like dark chocolate, which I mentioned in the video I showed in the beginning. Oysters for men is supposed to be very helpful. Absolutely. And raw honey. If you're going to choose honey, have raw honey. And someone asked about wine. Where is this? Did I miss anything about wine? Yes, red wine has benefits, cardiovascular benefits. Red wine is full of antioxidants, and it also helps because it has properties where it can prevent the clotting of platelets, or that we have different little things in our components in our blood that help us to stop bleeding, right? These are called platelets. And so at times, these platelets can interfere and can cause things like strokes, brain attacks, heart attacks. So yes, red wine is the healthier option, just as red grapes are the healthier option over the white grapes. Okay, so Muhammad just clarified. Let's see. He said, what if you have regular bowel movements and you still have a stomach? It's easy math, y'all. If you want to lose weight, eat less, work out more, drink water. I assure you, if you're drinking half your body weight in water, you will be less hungry. You'll quench your thirst. You won't eat as much because you won't feel hungry all the time. And if you change your diet, cut out all those carbohydrates, man. The carbohydrates are what's causing all the fat in the stomach, the midsection. Cut out the carbohydrates. You got to start slow and do this gradually, but you can do it and you'll lose that gut. And also cardio. If you don't have bad knees or bad back, go running. Do the bike if you have bad knees or a bad back. Bad back. Jesus, I'm getting tongue-tied. Okay, so eventually maybe a personal trainer will want to get on and we can talk more about ways to control and lose the weight. But I so appreciate you guys coming on and checking me out and listening to me talk about food in our guts and our brains and our moods. So Dr. Delvina, if the brain feeds us filtered information on the things give it, what specific foods do you think would help promote better clarity of the senses? So, okay, I showed a video at the very beginning, and in that video, I talked about foods that you can use to improve concentration and focus and attentiveness. Salmon was one of those main foods that I spoke about. Salmon has a lot of omega-3 fatty acids. So salmon is a great food to eat at least 3 times a week to help with focus and concentration and attention and better clarity. Not asparagus, but Brussels sprouts are also, and broccoli are also very good brain foods because they can help as well. And sweet potatoes can help as well. So you can come back and watch this because I'm about to close out. We've been on for almost an hour. In the beginning of this segment, there was a video that I played, and it talked about the ways you can eat to improve your concentration and your cognitive functioning, basically. And this will be the last question. Yes, ma'am, Jamila. I talked about blueberries earlier in the video. Blueberries are very awesome for the brain. And that was one of the foods I mentioned can help with focus and attention. Blueberries, I said in the video, are like little candy. Popping those blueberries all day throughout the day. And also blueberries help. They contain fiber, so it helps with bowel movements, with gut motility. How much red wine is okay to drink per day? I would say leave it to a small glass of red wine, no more than 8 ounces. Don't purchase one of those big old wine glasses and fill it up with half a bottle of wine. Keep it 8 ounces or less. 8 ounces or less. Okie dokie. So thank you guys. I put peppers and onions on everything. Peppers and onions are actually good for your health. So is garlic. So I may have to do a part 2 for this food in your mood. I really enjoyed having you guys on, and I appreciate all the interaction. And to Brian K. Jordan, will this show be a podcast? Now, did you ask me if this is a podcast? Yes, I have a podcast, and it is called the Brain Love Podcast. You can subscribe on all podcast platforms. It's the Brain Love Podcast. Please subscribe. The Brain Love Podcast. It began in May. It's every Sunday at 8 p.m. A new episode drops. It started back in May. So every Sunday at 8 p.m. a new episode will drop. So, I'm tired, y'all. Thanks for joining me. And listen, I got to give a plug. 2 weeks from now, on February 18th, is The Purge. Some of you may have seen, I posted a flyer about this a few months ago, and I said to stay tuned. I got the show together now. The Purge. I am talking Black mental health and wellness in America. I have a great show lined up. We have a panel of experts, including pastors, ministers, mental health professionals, licensed clinicians, who will talk about the ways Blacks, brown people, people of color, African Americans, whatever you consider yourself, how we can manage and maintain our sanity in America. Because the last 4 years have been rough, man. And the last year has probably been the roughest of these 4 years. So we've had a lot of things happen, a lot of traumatic events go down, and these things can traumatize you and make you feel very uneasy and unsafe in your own country. So I want to have this discussion. I'm bringing some special guests on to talk and share information because I want us all to be great. I want our mental wellness to be in check. So be sure to come back Thursday, February 18th. We're not starting at 8 p.m. that day. We're starting at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. 8:30, I'm telling you, this is probably going to be the best Therapy Thursday I've done, the best show I've done on my social media platforms. Come back, man. I'm going to start promoting that soon. And I hope to see you guys here, and bring your questions because the panelists are coming prepared to help. You'll hear from yoga experts, meditation folks, all of these people. All righty. Thanks again, guys. Remember, brain love. I can't hear you, but I want y'all to say brain love.